laws, and obviously it is a very new and upcoming area for all the resolution professionals, insolvency professionals to work tomorrow. So that is why we have chosen this topic today. Uh, Without wasting much time, I'll just give you the course of the webinar today. We'll start with a brief overview of the current situation and of the personal guarantors by CA Puneet Agarwalji, and then a brief overview by Madan sir, and thereafter some discussion on the provisions of personal guarantors by CA Manoj Anandji. Thereafter, we'll take your question answer and we'll have all the panelist discussion thereafter. So, with this, I welcome Puneet Agarwalji to take over and share his views. Puneetji, please.
Thank you, Abhishek. President BVSS, Rohitji, the advisor of the IBC group, Madan sir, my co-conveners, Manojji and Abhishekji, all the senior members of our profession, namaskar to all of you. The topic today is, I think, a very interesting topic, especially for those who have interest in pure branches of law. If you see the provisions relating to personal guarantors, actually the issues that are arising in IBC are not purely issues of insolvency and bankruptcy code itself. All these issues arise because of the legal liability and obligations which are attached with any guarantor. So we all know that guarantors, or the sureties as we call them under the traditional law of contract, they are governed by the provisions of the Indian Contract Act 1872. So the present problems that are being faced, or the legal issues that are arising in the context of personal guarantors, as they are called under the IBC law, it is basically a very, very typical mix of pure legal questions that arise out of the obligations, rights and obligations of the guarantors under the law of contract, and intertwined by and with the provisions of newly introduced insolvency and bankruptcy code insofar as they relate to the personal guarantors. And really, really very, very important questions of law do arise. So I would like to give you a very, very brief synopsis as to how and what type of issues are really arising in this, in respect of these personal guarantors. Let me just share my presentation, because I think that today's topic really warranted a presentation. That's why I have. Yeah. So if you see, I have divided this discussion and I will go fast and only discuss the important part of it. But how I have divided this discussion is that there is a background. Then we have issue number one is, if corporate insolvency resolution process or the application of corporate debtor is admitted, then what happens to the proceedings against personal guarantor, more specifically relating to the moratorium. The second is, where would these proceedings lie? Who is the authority? Insolvency under IBC or under the old insolvency laws? This relates to, again, personal guarantor. Once resolution plan is approved under section 31, would the liability, the balance liability, can still be recovered from the guarantor? If instead of resolution plan being approved under section 31, the insolvency application results into liquidation, and whether liability can be then recovered from surety, the balance liability. Then varies of the provisions of personal guarantor, which issue is currently before the Supreme Court. After approval under section 31, whether personal guarantor can take money from the creditor. So this another question that arises is that, can the personal guarantor still go and sue the creditor for the dues that he has paid? So very briefly, if you see, personal guarantor is defined in the code as a person who is as an individual who is the surety in a contract of guarantee to a corporate debtor. So if you see very closely, it refers to a surety in a contract of guarantee. And if you also see the provisions of this code in section 3 subsection 37, it says that the words which are not defined in this code would have the meaning which is given also under the Contract Act. The expression surety is defined in section 126 of the Contract Act, and a contract of guarantee is also defined therein under section 126 only. So according to me, that is something that we should see. Contract Act in section 126 says contract of guarantee is a contract to perform the promise. What I think there's some mistake. The contract of guarantee is a contract to perform the promise, and in what circumstances? Or discharge the liability of a third person in case of his default. So basically, broadly giving an example, if a banker gives guarantee, let us say to NHAI, that if the contractor do not construct the road within 1 year, then I promise to pay. State Bank of India says, I promise to pay to the NHAI a sum of 10 crore rupees. So on the default of the principal debtor, the guarantor says to the creditor that I will pay to you. So that is what typically is a contract of guarantee. And you would see that a contract of guarantee typically has two type of contracts or two contracts. One in the main contract where there is a supplier and a buyer or a person who has to perform, and the other one. So in the law of guarantee, they are called as the principal debtor, the one who has to perform, and the creditor is the one who has to take. And guarantor or surety is the person who guarantee the performance of this. So one contract is the principal contract, second is the contract of guarantee. And the most important aspect of a contract of guarantee is that these are treated to be two independent contracts. So it is not at all necessary. It is not at all necessary, I repeat, that the creditor sues the debtor. The creditor can directly sue the guarantor for recovery of the sum, or he can sue both, or he can sue one and thereafter the other. So it is solely and completely to the discretion of that person that whether he wants to recover his dues from the surety or he wants to recover his dues from the debtor. And that is where the problem do arise. I still remember when we were studying this contract law for the first time, and very, very honorable teacher, our teacher in our college, Shri MC Kuchal Saab, at that time he used to teach us. He told us that if after reading the contract of guarantee and the law relating thereto, you may decide to lend money to someone, but you would never decide to become a guarantor to money lent by someone else. These are the words that he used to. I still remember those words. That is because even though the guarantor does not get anything, his liability is absolutely equal to that of the principal debtor, and he is absolutely, for the creditor, he is equivalent. So creditor can go to debtor as also to the guarantor, and that is what these decisions say. I am just skipping these. I have already confirmed what this thing is. Now, what was that moment when IBC created this these provisions of personal guarantor actually got introduced into the IBC or got effective for the purposes of IBC? This is the notification which came on with effect from 1st of December 2019, section 78, 94, etc. I am skipping these because I believe Manojji would be covering these, because I want to cover more of the aspects and issues that arise. So definitely one aspect which I would like to deal is that 1/12/2019 is the cutoff date, and therefore what will be the impact of that. So insolvency resolution of corporate persons as also individual insolvency and bankruptcy, these are both the issues that are covered by the IBC law. Now this 1 December 2019 is only limited to introducing the provisions of relating to personal guarantors. So individuals are still not covered except unless they are a case of a personal guarantor. So if there is a personal guarantor who has given guarantee for a debt incurred by a corporate debtor, those persons have now been covered into the IBC. Those provisions have been made effective. Apart from that, उसके अलावा जो और individuals हैं उनके ऊपर या partnership forms के ऊपर अभी ये effective नहीं हुआ है. So now part 3 of the code है जो इसके बारे में बात करता है individuals के बारे में. तो personal guarantor भी वहीं cover होते हैं. Again, I leave it to Manoj ji to deal with this. Now I come to this first issue as to what is the impact of admission of corporate insolvency resolution process of the corporate debtor on personal guarantors proceedings. So इसके ऊपर बहुत लंबी चौड़ी बहस हुई वी रामकृष्णन के केस में, और शुरुआत में जो एनसीएलटी और एनसीएलटी ने ये व्यू लिया दैट अगर एक डेटर के खिलाफ ऑब्लिगेशन अंडर दिस एक्ट शुरू हो गई एप्लीकेशन, तो सेक्शन 14 का जो मॉरेटोरियम है वो इवन पर्सनल गारंटर के ऊपर भी अप्लाई हो जाएगा। मैं एक एग्जांपल के साथ इस बात को करना चाहता हूं सो दैट वी अंडरस्टैंड द प्रैक्टिकलिटी ऑफ इट। मान लीजिए कि एबीसी लिमिटेड के डायरेक्टर मिस्टर ए थे। एबीसी लिमिटेड की इंसॉल्वेंसी का प्रोसेस शुरू हुआ, और एबीसी लिमिटेड की इंसॉल्वेंसी का जब प्रोसेस शुरू हुआ तो उसके अंदर आप सबको मालूम है कि सेक्शन 14 में उनकी सारी प्रोसीडिंग्स के ऊपर मॉरेटोरियम लग गया जब एप्लीकेशन एडमिट हुई। अब क्वेश्चन ये अराइज होता है कि अगर वो लोन बैंकर्स ने 100 करोड़ रुपए का एबीसी लिमिटेड से लेना था, तो और वो 100 करोड़ का लोन गारंटी किया हुआ है बाय वे ऑफ पर्सनल गारंटी ऑफ द डायरेक्टर, तो क्या बैंकर ड्यूरिंग द मॉरेटोरियम पीरियड कैन दे sue मिस्टर ए फॉर रिकवरिंग दिस मनी? दिस वाज द क्वेश्चन। तो suing of Mr. A is not covered under IBC. Recovery from Mr. A is again not covered under IBC. वो तो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट के अंदर लायबिलिटी राइज होती है, और उसके लिए सिविल लॉ के अंदर आपके सिविल कोर्ट्स में उसकी सूट डल जाती है। सो या फिर वो दैट हैज टू गो थ्रू द मिल ऑफ DRT. So all these things are not covered under IBC. So but the question there was कि क्या provisions of IBC के कारण जो proceeding against Mr. A है वो stay हो जाएगी? NCLT and NCLAT both ruled in favor of the guarantor and said yes. But Supreme Court, after detailed discussion of the law, not just relating to IBC, but the whole background of the law, concluded कि जब आप इस कानून की बात करते हैं तो दोनों के पर्सनल गारंटर के प्रोविजंस पार्ट 3 में कवर होते हैं, जबकि जो पार्ट ये है 2 जिसके अंदर कॉर्पोरेट डेटर के प्रोविजंस कवर हो रहे हैं वो दोनों अलग अलग हैं। और सेक्शन 14 सिर्फ रेस्ट्रिक्ट करता है, पर्सनल गारंटर्स के ऊपर अप्लाई ही नहीं करता, वो सिर्फ कॉर्पोरेट डेटर्स के ऊपर ही रेस्ट्रिक्ट करता है। बिकॉज ऑफ दिस रीजनिंग एंड सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने एक बड़ा ही इंपॉर्टेंट ऑब्जर्वेशन इसमें किया। उन्होंने बोला कि जिस समय सिक इंडस्ट्रियल कंपनीज एक्ट आया था इस पर्पज के साथ कि हमें कंपनीज को सिकनेस से बाहर निकालना है, उस समय सेक्शन 22 ऑफ दैट एक्ट अगर जब प्रोसीडिंग सीका में शुरू होती थी तो वो पर्सनल गारंटर को भी प्रोटेक्शन देता था। लेकिन जब से सीका को रिप्लेस करके कंपनीज एक्ट में उसके प्रोविजन लाने की कोशिश की गई 2003 के अमेंडमेंट एक्ट में, उसके बाद 2013 के कंपनीज एक्ट में, चाहे वो इफेक्टिव नहीं हुए, और उसी तरीके से जब आईबीसी के सेक्शन 14 में पर्सनल गारंटर वर्ड नहीं यूज किया गया, इसका मतलब ये पार्लियामेंट की एक एक्टिव इंटेंशन शो करता है। दे नेवर वांटेड दैट द पर्सनल गारंटर्स प्रोसीडिंग्स शुड आल्सो ऑटोमेटिकली स्टॉप। और एक और बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट बात, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने रीइंफोर्स किया इस प्रिंसिपल को कि हम लोग ये सारे कानूनों को पर्पस ही क्रेडिटर्स का स्पीडी रिकवरी ऑफ मनी है। ऐसे में इफ यू ब्रिंग रोड ब्लॉक्स टू दैट, that would not be in line with the intent of the legislation. तो इस बेसिस पे सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ये बोला कि ये सारा का सारा जो सेक्शन 14 है, it do not apply to proceedings of corporate guarantor. Now of this guarantor. Now the important point is कि ये वाला जो क्वेश्चन सुप्रीम कोर्ट के सामने था ये सिर्फ सेक्शन 14 के मोरेटोरियम से रिलेटेड था। आगे की प्रोसीडिंग्स के लिए क्या हुआ, लेट अस मूव फर्दर टू द नेक्स्ट दिस थिंग। पार्ट 2 देखते हैं, वेयर दीज प्रोसीडिंग्स विल लाई। अब ये एक बड़ा ही इंटरेस्टिंग चेंज लेकर के आया आईबीसी इस पूरे प्रोसेस के अंदर। मैं आपको थोड़ा सा बैकग्राउंड जरा सा दे दूं कि जो इंडिविजुअल इंसॉल्वेंसीज थी वो हमारे 2 स्पेशल एक्ट्स के अंदर कवर होती थी। प्रेसिडेंशियल एंड प्रोविंशियल इंसॉल्वेंसी लॉज थे, उनके अंदर स्पेसिफिकली वो कवर होती थी इंडिविजुअल्स की इंसॉल्वेंसीज। ये जो आईबीसी कोड आया, दिस इज विद एन इंटेंट टू ब्रिंग अ कंप्लीट कोड एंड देयर इज एन इंटेंट टू रिप्लेस दोज प्रेसिडेंशियल एंड दिस थिंग प्रोविंशियल लॉज आल्सो। नाउ हाउएवर अभी इंडिविजुअल्स के ऊपर पूरा ये आया नहीं है, तो आईबीसी एक बड़ा ही इंटरेस्टिंग मेथड लेकर के आया। वो क्या, सेक्शन 60 जो ऑलरेडी इफेक्टिव था, वो सेक्शन 60 क्लियरली बोलता है कि अगर कोई कॉर्पोरेट डेटर के खिलाफ कोई प्रोसीडिंग चल रही है तो इवन पर्सनल गारंटर के खिलाफ भी प्रोसीडिंग एनसीएलटी में ही चलेगी। और अगर किसी कॉर्पोरेट डेटर के खिलाफ पहले नहीं चल रही थी, अब चलने लग गई इंसॉल्वेंसी की प्रोसीडिंग, तो फिर जो कॉर्पोरेट का पर्सनल गारंटर है उसकी प्रोसीडिंग यहां ट्रांसफर हो जाएगी। तो एनसीएलटी वो फोरम है जहां पर दिस फाइट हैज टू बी फॉट। इफ कॉर्पोरेट डेटर्स केस इज इन एनसीएलटी, देन पर्सनल गारंटर्स केस वुड आल्सो कम टू एनसीएलटी। अगर वो एनसीएलटी में नहीं है तो 1/12/19 से पहले, क्योंकि पर्सनल गारंटर्स के प्रोविजन नोटिफाई नहीं हुए थे, तो वो अपने सिविल कोर्ट्स में चलते रहेंगे। लेकिन 1/12/19 से पहले अगर किसी सीडी का केस डल गया तो वो पर्सनल गारंटर का केस इधर ट्रांसफर हो जाएगा। बट प्रोविजंस कौन से लगेंगे? सब्सटैंटिव प्रोविजंस वही एक्ट के लगते रहेंगे, वही पुराने वाले जो अगर जो आपको पर्सनल गारंटर की जो इंसॉल्वेंसी है उसके लिए वो पुराना ही प्रोविजन लगेगा। ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने स्पेसिफिकली क्लियर किया। नाउ 112(19) के बाद पोजीशन चेंज हो गई, क्योंकि पार्ट 3 विच अप्लाइज टू पर्सनल गारंटर्स हैज नाउ बीन इंट्रोड्यूस्ड एंड मेड इफेक्टिव इन द स्टैट्यूट फ्रॉम 112(19). तो वो जब आप पर्सनल गारंटर का केस, अगर सीडी का केस फाइल है तो पर्सनल गारंटर का केस एनसीएलटी के सामने आएगा, अदरवाइज उसकी एडजुडिकेटिंग अथॉरिटी जो है वो है डीआरटी। तो ये काफी, आई वुड से देयर आर अ लॉट ऑफ परमुटेशंस एंड कॉम्बिनेशंस इन सो फार एज दीज पर्सनल गारंटर्स jurisdiction is concerned. ब्रॉडली ये इसकी jurisdiction है। जैसा मैंने कहा, वी रामास्वामी में उन्होंने इन बातों को कुछ हद तक क्लियर भी किया। तीसरा है इंसॉल्वेंसी पुराने एक्ट में होगी या आईबीसी एक्ट में होगी। वो मैं आपको बता चुका हूं कि 1/12/19 से पहले वो इंसॉल्वेंसी पुराने एक्ट में होनी थी, लेकिन क्योंकि उसके बाद ये प्रोविजंस नोटिफाई हो गए तो अब उसके बाद से दिस आईबीसी लॉ वुड प्रिवेल फॉर द पर्पस ऑफ डिटरमिनिंग इंसॉल्वेंसी ऑफ दीज individuals. अब ये लीगल प्रोविजंस, आई एम जस्ट स्किपिंग दीज लीगल प्रोविजंस। मनोज जी आप डिस्कस कर लीजिएगा कि कैसे आईबीसी में इंसॉल्वेंसी के पर्सनल गारंटर्स के क्या प्रोविजंस हैं। नाउ लेट मी मूव टू द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन कि अगर एक बार रेजोल्यूशन प्लान अप्रूव्ड हुआ अंडर सेक्शन 37, कैन द लायबिलिटी स्टिल बी रिकवर्ड फ्रॉम गारंटर? ये एक अकॉर्डिंग टू मी इज हाईली कंटेंशियस इशू, मोर स्पेसिफिकली बिकॉज कैलकाटा हाईकोर्ट ने इसमें बड़ा एक अलग सा व्यू ले लिया। इसमें क्वेश्चन क्या अराइज हुआ, बड़ा ही सिंपल है। जैसे मैं अभी आपको एग्जांपल दिया था, एबीसी लिमिटेड के खिलाफ आईबीसी की प्रोसीडिंग इनिशिएट हुई या उन्होंने खुद एप्लीकेशन फाइल करी और एक रेजोल्यूशन प्लान बना। वो रेजोल्यूशन प्लान हैज बीन एक्सेप्टेड अंडर सेक्शन 31. सो द फैक्ट्स ऑफ द केस आर दैट द रेजोल्यूशन प्लान स्टैंड्स एक्सेप्टेड अंडर सेक्शन 31. Now, Section 31 says that once the resolution plan is accepted, it is binding qua the creditor, debtor and the guarantor. So वो सबके ऊपर बाइंडिंग है, ऐसा Section 31 कहता है। तो अब इशू ये अराइज हुआ कि क्या लेट अस से कि 200 करोड़ रुपए या 100 करोड़ रुपए की लायबिलिटी थी और इस रेजोल्यूशन प्लान में स्टेट बैंक ऑफ इंडिया को सिर्फ 70 करोड़ रुपए मिलते हैं 100 करोड़ के अगेंस्ट, ऐसा मान लेते हैं एक एग्जाम्पल के तौर पे। तो ये जो कलकत्ता हाई कोर्ट में इशू अराइज हुआ गौरी शंकर जैन के केस में, इसमें ये क्वेश्चन था कि वो जो बैलेंस 30 करोड़ है क्या मैं गारंटर से क्लेम कर सकता हूं, पर्सनल गारंटर से? तो उसके अंदर कलकत्ता हाई कोर्ट ने सुप्रीम कोर्ट के डिसीजंस को साइट किया और उनको साइट करने के बाद कलकत्ता हाई कोर्ट ने व्यू लिया। उसका कलकत्ता हाई कोर्ट ने जो महाराष्ट्र स्टेट इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बोर्ड और एंड वेरियस अदर डिसीजंस के ऊपर रिलाय करके ये बोला कि मियरली इंसॉल्वेंसी की प्रोसीडिंग के कारण जो डेट कन्वर्ट हो जाता है कम अमाउंट के अंदर, वो इट डज नॉट रिड्यूस द अमाउंट ऑफ डेट। व्हाट द सुप्रीम कोर्ट सेड वाज कि अगर इंसॉल्वेंसी की प्रोसीडिंग करने से पहले 100 रुपए की लायबिलिटी थी तो इंसॉल्वेंसी विच इज ऑपरेशन ऑफ लॉ, उसके अंदर अगर 70 रुपए अग्री हुए तो वो 30 रुपए डेट कम नहीं हुआ, डेट 100 ही रहा, लेकिन वो 70 रुपए आप कॉर्पोरेट डेटर से रिकवर कर सकते हो क्योंकि लॉ ऐसा कहता है, आप 100 नहीं कर सकते, है ही नहीं उसके पास। सो ये जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट का डिसीजन था महाराष्ट्र स्टेट इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बोर्ड का, ये कंप्लीटली डिफरेंट कॉन्टेक्स्ट में था। इसके अंदर उस कंपनी की एक्चुअली इंसॉल्वेंसी हो गई थी वो और लिक्विडेट हो गई थी वो कंपनी, उस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा कि अगर वो कंपनी लिक्विडेट हो गई है तो गारंटर को तो पैसे फिर भी देने पड़ेंगे, क्योंकि उसने तो सम गारंटी किया है। वो लिक्विडेट हो गई, वो पैसे नहीं पूरे दे पाई, तो भी गारंटर को देने हैं। यहां पर डिफरेंस क्या था कि दिस वाज नॉट अ केस ऑफ लिक्विडेशन, दिस वाज अ केस ऑफ रेजोल्यूशन प्लान। तो कैलकाटा हाई कोर्ट ने ये व्यू उन जजमेंट्स को लेकर के लिया जो जजमेंट बेसिकली आर कंसर्न्ड विद एक्चुअल लिक्विडेशन। वो लॉ अकॉर्डिंग टू मी इज क्वाइट डिफरेंट फ्रॉम the facts of this case, where statutorily section 31 has stated that where the if the adjudicating authority is satisfied that the resolution plan as approved by committee of creditors under 34 meets the requirement as referred to in 32, it shall by order approve the resolution plan. And then it says, which shall be binding on the corporate debtor, its employees, members, creditors, including the central government, any state government, or any local authority to whom a debt in respect of payment of dues arising under any law for the time being in force, such as authorities to whom statutory dues are owed, guarantors, and other stakeholders involved in the resolution plan. So basically ये जो concept है insolvency resolution का, this is a concept of clean slate. So whatever has been approved by virtue of a resolution plan, which is a plan which is allowed to be approved by the committee of creditors and ultimately which is finally approved by the NCLT in terms of section 31, it is binding on all the relevant stakeholders, including the creditor, debtor, and the guarantor. Would this not impact the application of general law, which was there in the case of Maharashtra State Electricity Board case, जहां पर ना तो ऐसा कोई प्रोविजन था और ना कोई प्रोविजन के कारण वो लाइबिलिटी को मान लिया गया था कि ये आपस में अग्रीड लाइबिलिटी है? मेरे हिसाब से कैलकाटा हाई कोर्ट ने सेक्शन 31 को कंप्लीटली एग्जामिन नहीं किया और उन्होंने इसके अंदर पंजाब हरियाणा हाई कोर्ट का ये डिसीजन जो है उसको कुंदन मल को डिस्टिंग्विश किया, बल्कि उन्होंने तो ये तक कहा कि इट नीड्स रिकंसिडरेशन। बट अकॉर्डिंग टू मी कुंदन मल के केस में 391 की स्कीम अगर हाई कोर्ट ने अप्रूव करी थी तो हाई कोर्ट ने, पंजाब हरियाणा हाई कोर्ट ने, जस्टिस हेमंत गुप्ता ने ऑथर किया था, वो उन्होंने बोला कि नो, अगर एक बारी 391 में आपने हाई कोर्ट ने अप्रूव कर दिया एक स्कीम तो वो स्कीम इज बाइंडिंग ऑन ऑल। क्रेडिटर कैन नॉट से कि जी कंपनी से तो मेरे को 100 रुपए लेने थे, स्कीम में 70 रह गए, अब मैं 30 रुपए गारंटर से ले लूंगा। ही सेज इट इज बाइंडिंग ऑन ऑल एंड दैट कॉन्सेप्ट अकॉर्डिंग टू मी शुड हैव बीन द करेक्ट कॉन्सेप्ट अप्लाइड इन दिस केस। अदरवाइज ये कैसे बोला जाए कि ये बाइंडिंग है ऑन डेटर, क्रेडिटर एंड गारंटर? फिर तो आपने बोला कि ये रेजोल्यूशन प्लान, फिर बाइंडिंग का मीनिंग ही नहीं कुछ रह गया 31 का। और मैं आई विल ऑल्सो लाइक टू ड्रॉ योर अटेंशन टू सेक्शन 128 ऑफ द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट, जो ये बोलता है कि गारंटर और श्योरिटी की जो लाइबिलिटी इज को टर्मिनस विद द लाइबिलिटी ऑफ द मेन डेटर, द प्रिंसिपल डेटर। तो अगर प्रिंसिपल डेटर तो 70 रुपए देने की लाइबिलिटी है और आप बोल रहे हैं कि गारंटर की लाइबिलिटी 100 रुपए है, आई डोंट थिंक दैट दैट रियली रिप्रेजेंट्स द करेक्ट व्यू एंड आई एम डेफिनेटली श्योर कि आगे ये इश्यूज आगे अल्टीमेटली सुप्रीम कोर्ट तक ट्रैवल करेंगे और फाइनली तब डिसाइड होगा कि वो कैसे, हाउ एंड व्हाट वुड बी द रियल इंटरप्रिटेशन ऑफ इट। द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज कि अगर रेजोल्यूशन प्लान, इफ इंस्टेड ऑफ रेजोल्यूशन प्लान बीइंग अप्रूव्ड, इंसॉल्वेंसी रिजल्ट्स इनटू लिक्विडेशन, वेदर लायबिलिटी कैन बी रिकवर्ड फ्रॉम श्योरिटी? यस, यहां पर आपका वो जो महाराष्ट्र का डिसीजन मैंने आपको दिखाया था, ये महाराष्ट्र स्टेट इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बोर्ड सुप्रीम कोर्ट का डिसीजन, ये वाला डिसीजन यहां अप्लाई करेगा बिकॉज यहां पर सेक्शन 31 का डीमिंग फिक्शन नहीं लगेगा। देन यस, इट कैन बी सेड दैट इट कैन बी रिकवर्ड फ्रॉम द श्योरिटी। द लास्ट वन, which is in fact the second last issue, is vires of the provisions of personal guarantor। ये आज की डेट में after holding by the Supreme Court in this case by Justice Nariman, where he held that section 14 का moratorium नहीं मिलेगा, उसके बावजूद अनिल अंबानी के केस में ये इशू रेज हुआ। अनिल अंबानी was the personal guarantor in his companies के खिलाफ NCLT में प्रोसीडिंग चल रही थी। When the proceedings were initiated against Mr. Ambani, an issue arose. He raised an issue before NCLT that these proceedings cannot be continued Why? Because he said the issues are yet to be crystallized against the company. ये आर्गुमेंट कभी आर्गुमेंट हो नहीं सकता गारंटी के कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स में. क्यों नहीं? क्योंकि ये लॉ बड़ा वेल सेटल्ड है कि अगर दोनों के बीच में झगड़ा भी हो रहा है प्रिंसिपल डेटर और क्रेडिटर का, तब भी आप श्योरिटी से पैसे ले सकते हो. बट एनसीएलटी का अगेंस्ट डिसीजन आने के बाद ही चैलेंज द प्रोविजंस ऑफ लॉ इटसेल्फ ऑफ आईबीसी रिलेटिंग टू पर्सनल गारंटर्स. वो इशू, ऑन दैट इशू दिल्ली हाई कोर्ट stayed and granted interim protection to Mr. Ambani, and thereafter several such issues were raised in various courts. Ultimately, transfer petition was moved and it was transferred by the Supreme Court to itself, and Supreme Court said that let us decide this issue finally, because this is a very important issue which must be decided. That is what the Supreme Court said, and today the matter is pending before the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court has restrained any High Court from taking the taking any steps or any to admit any petition on this aspect. So that is what the Supreme Court said. Now the last point is, after approval under Section 31, whether personal guarantor can take money from the creditor. So this is after approval under Section 31. Now, if you see, this is purely a question relating to contract law. If in the course of granting of guarantee, guarantor was required, let's say एक resolution plan बना, 100 रुपए की liability स्टेट बैंक के फेवर में थी, स्टेट बैंक को 100 रुपए की जगह कुल मिला के 70 मिले, उस 70 में से 40 रुपए तो दिए डेटर ने और सीडी ने, और 30 rupees is paid by the personal guarantor. That is how the scheme is drawn up. Now the question is, क्या ये 30 rupees जो guarantor है वो डेटर से ले सकता है? तो वो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट लॉ के अंदर ये बात का डायरेक्ट सेक्शन 140 का प्रोविजन है. वो ये बोलता है कि जैसे ही लायबिलिटी पे कर देता है गारंटर इन डिस्चार्ज ऑफ हिज ऑब्लिगेशन एज अ गारंटर, वो he comes in the same position as the creditor, and that money he can recover from the corporate debtor. So I think वो उस तरीके से he can claim the money back in this case. And this Supreme Court transfer petition, I have already referred this, which is IBBI versus Lalit Kumar. So this is what basically is the dispute which relates to, this is a broad framework relating to the dispute which is there in case of personal guarantors. So Abhishek, back to you. Please carry over. Thank you.
Thank you, Puneet ji, for your excellent deliberation.
Now, I want to make a comment today. Puneet ji has reminded me the time when we were pursuing the LLB course, and Indian Contract Act was used to be the very prominent act, and section 122, 123, 124, all the sections. And I think very categorically he referred that not only the liability coexists, but right of the principal debtor also coexists. So that is, I think, the very important point which in this new regime, and I always say that IBC is senior to GST, and both the laws are still struggling and developing. But this point certainly we have to see with this reference. Thank you. Thank you, Abhishek.
Thank you, Rohit ji. Now over to Madan sir for his views on the topic. Madan sir, please.
Thank you, Abhishek ji. Rohit ji, Manoj ji, Puneet ji, सबको नमस्कार. My good evening to all the participants. और पुनीत जी ने ना तो मेरे लिए कुछ बोलने के लिए छोड़ा है और ना समय छोड़ा है. हम सबके लिए आई थिंक 45 मिनट्स है, पुनीत जी ने ऑलरेडी 35 मिनट्स उसमें से ले लिए हैं. नाउ वी आर लेफ्ट विद ओनली 10 मिनट्स. तो मुझे लगता है 5 मिनट मैं लेता हूँ, मनोज जी 5 मिनट आप लीजिए. और मेरे लिए तो सच में कुछ छोड़ा ही नहीं है. वॉट एवर आई वॉन्टेड टू कवर, हैट्स ऑफ टू मिस्टर पुनीत दैट ही हैज कवर्ड ऑलमोस्ट एवरीथिंग. And I could see that around for his opening remarks, he had a PPT of 89 slides. पुनीत जी, आपने इतनी मेहनत की है PPT बनाने में, शेयर जरूर कर देना.
कर देता हूँ सर, जरूर.
89 स्लाइड्स में मुझे तो लगता है मेरा तो पूरा दिन निकल जाएगा जब भी मैं कहीं और लेक्चर दूंगा तो.
राइट सर, राइट सर.
Yes, you have done a wonderful job and made my task easy for my future events. Now coming to this overview of personal guarantors to corporate debtors, whatever I'll be saying, that will be nothing but a duplicacy of what Mr. Puneet said, barring couple of issues. As he said very rightly, that liability of the borrower as well as liability of the personal guarantor, both these liabilities coexist. And the moment the principal borrower becomes defaulter, the liability of this personal guarantor starts. And it is the discretion of the lender to initiate proceedings either against the principal borrower or against the personal guarantor or against both of them. Actually, these provisions, as Mr. Puneet said, were there in Indian Contract Act. But in Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, the provisions have been deliberately been segregated in two different parts, part 2 and part 3, which means that there should be total clarity that for one single debt, there should be clarity that where the lender has to move. For one amount of default, should he go to various different forums, or the provisions are absolutely crystal clear that for one particular amount he can go here, and for another document or another contract he can go to a different forum. But here what is that decided? He need not go to two different forums. He can file the application before one single forum only, and that is NCLT. But whether these provisions can be invoked, I remember when I did my first case way back in May 2017, that was a Section 10 application. And on the day of the admission, when the order was being pronounced, there was a practice in that particular bench. I will not name the bench, or I'll not name the name of the corporate debtor also. There was a practice that the bench will share the draft order with the counsel that if there is any factual mistake. When I was going through the order in May 2017, when I was going through the order, the last paragraph said that the bankers are at liberty to invoke the personal guarantees of the promoters. That really shook me. That if the banker has liberty to invoke the personal guarantees, why the banker should come forward under Section 10 and ask the NCLT to admit the application. I prayed before the bench, your lordship, this should not be made possible. This should not be allowed. If you write here that bankers are at liberty to invoke the personal guarantees of the promoter, certainly bankers will do that. But he said, okay, Mr. Madan, show me the guarantee document. Can't they do it? Does it not coexist? I said, your lordship, it coexists. But the issue is it required to be written separately? Specifically in the order itself, that they are at liberty to invoke the personal guarantees of the promoters. I just suppose tomorrow the total liability of the company towards the bank is 100 crores, and as per the books of accounts of the company, total assets are of 225 crores. First of all, they should try to recover their money from the assets of the company. If something remains, then they should come to the personal guarantors. But if tomorrow, if something doesn't remain, nothing remains, why should they invoke the personal guarantees of the promoters? So I prayed before your lordship, this clause, this particular paragraph should be removed from the order. He said, Mr. Madan, I've given you the order just to check whether there are some factual mistakes. Not for this matter is not listed for arguments today. But I still argued. I argued before lunch. I argued after lunch. I argued in the cabin of the presiding officer. And at the end of the day, I was conveyed that particular paragraph has been removed from the order. So sometimes it happens कि अगर आप कुछ मांगो तो शायद मिल जाता है. मैंने मांगा और मुझे मिल गया. And I was very lucky. And actually, whatever I pleaded that day, that became true in the matter of State Bank of India versus Mr. V. Ramakrishnan, which Mr. Puneet also referred to that judgment. NCLT Chennai and later on National Company Law Appellate Tribunal, both of them upheld actually my plea there, that certainly this personal guarantee cannot be invoked at this point of time. However, later on, when the matter went to Supreme Court reverse the judge decisions of NCLT and NCLAT, and Supreme Court said no, personal guarantees can be invoked simultaneously. But this issue became alive again. Actually, this V. Ramakrishnan was passed somewhere in August 2018, if I remember correctly. And at that point of time, Supreme Court said that object of the code is not to allow guarantors to escape from an independent coexistent liability. But later on, this particular issue took a different twist in Piramal's case. But in Piramal's case, what happened? That the bank filed Section 7 application against the corporate guarantor. And in that case, the corporate guarantor had given the guarantee for the loans taken by a society. The first question was whether the corporate guarantor, who is a corporate guarantor to a society, whether an application can lie against him under the provisions of IBC or not. It was decided, yes, it can be done. It was by, and it is NCLAT judgment of January 2019. Then the second issue was, can the CG be invoked at this point of time? Ultimately, actually, NCLAT decide that if the bank is deciding to recover the money from the principal borrower as well as from the corporate debtor, from the corporate guarantor, it cannot be possible. You may invoke the, you may raise this, you may ask for your money from one of them, either from the principal borrower or from the corporate guarantor. However, that judgment of NCLAT has been appealed and the matter is pending before Supreme Court. And we have been waiting Supreme Court to come out with the final judgment against that particular, in that particular order. In the meantime, what happens? Nothing happens. But in August 2020, the Department of Financial Services has really advised, it is advisory only. There is an advisory to the public sector banks. And the advisory is that to consider putting in place a mechanism for monitoring the cases which may require initiation of individual insolvency process before NCLT against personal guarantors. Actually, the system is not in place. Later on, it has also been said to those private public sector banks that some information technology system should be developed just to oversee how to initiate the cases against the personal guarantors, whether those personal guarantors are owning certain assets or not, what is the value of those assets, and is it worthwhile? Is it worthwhile to initiate or to invoke the personal guarantees or file an insolvency and bankruptcy cases against the personal guarantors? And as Mr. Puneet said very rightly, that on 15 November 2019, a notification was issued and these provisions became effective from 1st of December 2020, along with the rules and regulations with relation to PG to CD. Now, once this advisory is given in August 2020, what has happened? We have seen number of banks, particularly State Bank of India. I don't know whether Mr. Sanjeev Pandey has joined us or not. He's DGM NCLT from State Bank of India. He was supposed to join us. I will ask the admin to check if he's there. I would like to hear his views also on this particular issue. Because Mr. State Bank of India invoked or filed an application against the personal guarantor, that is Mr. Sanjay Singhal, in case of Bhushan Power and Steel. Another application was preferred, again Mr. Anil Ambani of Anil Ambani Group of Companies. Some more personal guarantee applications were filed before various benches of NCLT. Some of them moved Delhi High Court. In Delhi High Court, couple of cases went before Justice Vipin Sanghi. And Justice Vipin Sanghi granted stay in those two applications. Some of the application went before the principal bench. Chief's Bench in Delhi High Court. Notices were issued, but stay was not granted. But ultimately, the stay was extended to all the cases, all the applications filed before Delhi High Court. Then what happened? Before some other benches, the applications were filed, and ultimately, IBBI really got worried that if we have to represent before various high courts in various cases, and if various high courts, various benches, they pass different orders, if it will be very very difficult to defend the provisions of the code, because in majority of the cases, the virus of these provisions was being challenged. So ultimately, IBBI preferred an application before Supreme Court, and ultimately, I think maybe 10, 12 days back only, Supreme Court decided, I think that was on 29th of October, Supreme Court decided that let all the applications be transferred to Supreme Court, and now Supreme Court is seized of this issue. Supreme Court has allowed this transfer petition, and in this final order, what Supreme Court has said that this code is at a nascent stage, and it's better that interpretation of the provisions of the code is taken up by this court only to avoid any confusion and to authoritatively settle the law. Considering the provisions, considering the importance of this particular issue, which has been challenged before various high courts in various petitions, this issue actually needs finality of judicial determination at the earliest. Therefore, it is just and proper that writ petitions are transferred from the High Court to this court. Now, friends, for your information, the stay which has been granted by Delhi High Court or maybe by any other court is applicable only to those applications which have been filed before those high courts. This stay is not applicable to any other application or any other case where the action may be taken or is being taken. So this stay is not automatic. And further, what Supreme Court has said, that all interim orders passed by high courts will continue to remain in operation till further orders. Matter will now be taken up on December 2, by which time all the pleadings are required to be completed, and no further writ petition on the issues are to be entertained by any high court. To me, the interpretation is that now in any other case, the action may be taken by the bank. No writ petition can now be filed. The benefit of this stay will not be applicable in those cases. The benefit of stay will be applicable only in those cases which were pending before High Court and have now been transferred to Supreme Court. This is what my personal understanding is. But looking at all this scenario, I'm asking some question to myself. And one of the questions is that during this COVID period, Section 7, 9, and 10 have been suspended. Where is the need of taking action against the personal guarantors during this time? Should it not have been deferred? Whether the suspension should not be extended to these applications also, or initiating of this action against the personal guarantors. Another question which I'm asking myself, Mr. Puneet also raised that issue, that if a loan gets settled by way of a resolution plan, if a resolution plan is there and the banks have accepted a particular amount by way of a resolution plan, it means there will not be any debt in the books of the bank after this resolution plan. Why this personal guarantee now is required to be invoked, or why an application is required to be filed against the personal guarantor? Thirdly, tomorrow a question may arise that if the liquidation value of the assets of the company was 100 crores and the plan value is 70 crores only, and that is possible because of Maharashtra Seamless case, the personal guarantor can always say, why you agree for the 70 crores of a resolution plan when the liquidation value itself was 100 crores. Now, if you come to me, I'm not going to pay to you this amount. Deliberately, you agreed for 70 crores. Out of 70 crores, you only received 55 crores. You could have invoked SARFAESI. You could have gone to liquidation of the assets of the company under the provisions of IBC, and you could have raised this entire 100 crore would have come to you. Why are you coming before me? You deliberately agreed for a lesser amount to initiate action against me. The last question, which is really bothering me, whether any of the personal guarantor is having any asset at this stage, whether we, the professionals, do not advise all these promoters or directors or personal guarantors to siphon off all their assets or personal belongings in some other names. And as on date, to my knowledge, none of the personal guarantor is holding any asset in his or her own name. So all this action of personal guarantee shall be futile. Ultimately, let's see whether the banks will be able to generate some money or not, and how Supreme Court comes out with the final judgment. And as far as the virus of the provisions are concerned, let me hope all the best to banks as well as the personal guarantors. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madan sir, for your insightful discussion. And I think, yes, this is a very major issue where they accept the resolution plan and thereafter, and that too below a liquidation value. And thereafter, they go ahead with the personal guarantors that you pay me the rest of the amount. So this is again one of the burning issues which I have also faced very recently. So thank you, sir, for the discussion. And now I welcome Mr. Manoj Anandji to share some insights on how the life of insolvency professionals is going to change when we are dealing with these provisions, because I'm sure all the insolvency professionals must have some sweet and bitter taste of the CIRP process all along these 4 years. So how this life of insolvency professionals will change. Manoj Anandji, please, over to you. मनोज जी
मैंने मेरा म्यूट था, मैंने अनम्यूट कर दिया. अब आवाज आ रही होगी. आ रही है आवाज?
राइट.
हेलो.
यस यू आर ऑडिबल.
चलिए, आई एम ऑडिबल नाउ. ओके, बहुत सारे हॉट टॉपिक्स से पुनीत जी को सुनकर तो ये लग रहा था कि how he has been along with Madan ji कि how he has been able to point out so many points कि कलकत्ता हाई कोर्ट बेंच ने ये गलती करी, एनक्लैड ने ये चीजें मिस कर दी. इट्स रियली हेड्स ऑफ टू पुनीत जी एंड मदान जी कि आपने एनालिसिस करके हाई कोर्ट का और एनक्लैड का, जब पिरामल के केस की जो बात थी, जब रामाकृष्णन जी के केस की जो बात थी कि व्हाट वर द फाइन लाइन ऑफ डिफरेंस दैट इज देयर. इन एनी केस, सिंस टाइम विद मी इज वेरी लेस, मैंने जो अपनी स्लाइड्स प्रिपेयर करी हैं वो मैंने प्रिपेयर करी हैं बेसिकली ऑन द प्रैक्टिकल एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ इंसॉल्वेंसी प्रोफेशनल कि होपफुली हमारे पास ये केसेस आएंगे. जब केसेस आएंगे तो फीस मिलेगी या ना मिलेगी, लिक्विडेशन वाली इसके अंदर यहाँ पे सिचुएशन है. होपफुली फीस भी मिलेगी. और उससे पहले जब व्हेनेवर जैसे आप लोगों ने लॉ डिस्कस करा, तो आई वुड आल्सो लाइक टू एज एन इंसॉल्वेंसी प्रोफेशनल कि हमारे पास अगर केस आता है या इस केस को कैसे लेना है, तो आई मेड माय प्रेजेंटेशन ऑन दैट. तो आई वुड लाइक टू स्टार्ट विद माय प्रेजेंटेशन immediately. This is all small thing. I'm just sharing. साहिल एक मिनट आना. स्क्रीन शेयर हो रही है, करिए ना. कैसे? Just hold on, please.
We are able to see your screen.
We are able to see your screen, sir.
Okay.
But now not. We were able to see your screen. It's there.
Yeah, it is there.
It's there, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, we started our this law. I'm just moving by a little bit fast so that I start with this thing. Yes. First of all, our audience consists of mainly insolvency professionals and a lot of non-IPs also, like CS and others. First of all, I would like to share with them why we be interested in understanding this law. For IBC practitioner, definitely we as an insolvency professional advocates are bread and butter. We have to go with it. But for non-IBC person, it has provided something unprecedented to educate and implement it among our clients. What that unprecedented is, that I be sharing it with you in my coming slides. Please note that earlier in the case of individual insolvency applicable laws, as earlier this जो हमारा जो law था, अगर हम from any individual, if you want to take money, then we have to file an application under Presidency Act. Presidency Act, which was applicable, Presidency Act 1901, which was applicable partially in Bombay, Kolkata, Madras, and partially in other parts of the country. But now, around 500 cases of under this law was mainly filed in Gujarat and Mumbai and some parts of Kolkata. Not a single case was filed in North India. But after initiation of personal insolvency, all the cases till date has been filed only from Northern India, and that too mainly from the Delhi bench. Yeah. I have made this pictorial representation with the intention that Mr. Anil Mani filed an application for this purpose. Had this law been notified earlier, perhaps Mr. Malia and others might have also think of filing it. Now, before as an insolvency professional, we go for understanding this law. Let's see ingredients. As a practitioner, as an insolvency professional, what things we have to study? We have to study Part 3 of the Insolvency Bankruptcy Code, which deals with insolvency resolution bankruptcy code for individuals and partnership firms, section 78 to 183. We need to study Chapter 3 of Part 3, consisting of section 94 to 120, deals with insolvency resolution process. We need to study Chapter 4 and this thing also. Please note that this was made applicable, as told by earlier Mr. Puneetji, by Central Government Notification number 4126 with effect from 1st of December 2020. Here it is pertinent to note that for individual insolvency, default limit is still 1 lakh rupees. As per section 4, the limit has been enhanced to rupees 1 crore for filing under section 7, 9, and 10 only. Second major aspect is there that you be seeing that I have written here chapter 3 and 4. Chapter 2, which consists of sections 80 to 89, need not to be studied. Reason being that there is, as per section 80, subsection 2, subsection A, it is applicable. This chapter is applicable only to those persons whose gross total income annual is not exceeding 60,000 rupees. This is the applicable law. This is a code we need to study. Along with that, whenever any case comes to us, we need to study rules also. These are basically small rules. Application to adjudicating authority for insolvency resolution process for personal guarantors. Second is in case of bankruptcy, it's a similar. Now we need to study some regulations also. Regulations also, applicable regulations are insolvency resolution process to corporate debtors, insolvency bankruptcy process for personal guarantors. As Puneetji and Madan Sahab earlier discussed a lot of prison it. So I also feel that just for effective practice of this insolvency law with reference to personal guarantors, we need to study Indian Contract Act also. We have BLRC report also, which was the basis of IBC. In the case of individual insolvency, we should go through the PK Malhotra report also, which is available on the IBBI website in March 2019. As told earlier, this applicable earlier, how this act was made applicable. This act was made applicable by notification. Earlier, under section 2, clause E to D was notified, and by this particular, as told earlier, from 1 December, clause E was made applicable, and that to only a limited extent. And what, as we discussed, Madanji told that we skipped it off this thing. कि ये इसके implementation में hurdle क्या है? कोविड-19, when दिसंबर में ये जब जैसे ही एक्ट ये नोटिफाई हुआ इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के लिए 1 दिसंबर से कोविड आ गया मार्च में. 19 suits as told by Puneet ji in his presentation were filed, which has all been transferred to the Supreme Court. And another hurdle of this is the Piramal Enterprise judgment, NCLAT's Piramal Enterprise judgment, which has been discussed by Madan ji. But it has 1 or 2 more points, which when I be discussing landmark judgment, I be sharing those additional 1 or 2 points also. And another hurdle was that as per the government policy, they thought for the cases which will be done at DRT level, we need to have each branch of DRT at every district headquarters, which because of infrastructure, they are able to do it. And now let's go for the jurisdiction. Section 60 subsection 3 defines where jurisdiction lies. Jurisdiction where KIP is going on being NCLT. अगर किसी मैं कहने का मतलब ये है कि अगर किसी कॉप सीडी का केस इसके अंदर चल रहा है तो उसकी भी jurisdiction section 60 section 3 के अंदर same NCLT के अंदर होगी. Now section 179 deals just subject to section 60. It is DRT. It means that if later on any cases are the cases are come for under this act, then their jurisdiction will be DRT. This is the simplest way of understanding the jurisdiction, because it is very important. We have to file application there. Here we have to file application section 94 read with rule 6 by debtor, section 95 read with rule 7 by creditor. Section 94 की जो application है, it is like section 10 application in the case of CRIP, and section 94 की application है section 7 or 9 की equivalent application है, और but only additional thing in these applications that you have to provide a lot of information. You have, because reason being for that is there, in case of CRIP, information is available. It is presumed that information is available with SEBI, MCA, and a lot of other government authorities also, even income tax office also, because corporate returns are mandatory. But in case of individuals, nothing is prescribed in any law, either for preparation of books and for this thing. Then where this application, how the information will be given to the prospective resident prospective IP only on the basis of what he's supposed to file in the application there. Now, one question arises here: if for this application, that if A Limited, B Limited, C Limited CRIP is going on, and where the application against debtor means corporate guarantor be filed? Answer: nothing is provided in the law, but as far as our past precedent and practice are concerned, if we can simply say where debt is higher or close to the debtor's address, perhaps adjudicating authority will allow that thing there. Second, last, another thing, whenever we go for practicing any new law, terminology is very important. I remember, जैसे पुनीत जी ने कहा, उन्होंने अपने सर के वर्ड्स टीचर का वर्ड याद है, ऐसे मेरे को भी मेरे प्रिंसिपल के when I was an article, अमरजीत चोपड़ा was my principal, I remember his word. What happened कि I went for the bank audit. मैं कहा सर मैं तो बैंक ऑडिट की करानी कैसे कर लूं? कहता मनोज, बिल्स पेबल, बिल्स रजिस्टर, ये 3-4 रजिस्टर्स के नाम मेरे से सीख ले, और जैसे ही मैनेजर के पास जाएगा ना, उसके इन 3-4 के नाम बोल दियो तो समझ आएगी तेरे को बैंक ऑडिट आता है. उसके बाद जो तुमने करना होगा कर लियो. And I realized कि that was something very good. Similarly, in this also I prepared some points कि इसके अंदर क्रिप के अलावा बेसिकली जो मेरी प्रेजेंटेशन है ये अप्रोक्सीमेटली 31 स्लाइड थी, तो इसके अंदर जो वी ऑल आर प्रैक्टिसिंग क्रिप, एंड इसमें जो क्रिप के अलावा एडिशनल पॉइंट्स है मैंने उन्हीं को कवर किया है. फॉर एग्जांपल, जैसे इस पे फाइनेंशियल एंड ऑपरेशनल क्रेडिटर्स है, दीज आर चेंज टू क्रेडिटर्स ओनली. नो डिस्टिंक्शन हैज बीन मेड बिटवीन क्रेडिटर वेदर इज अ फाइनेंशियल और ऑपरेशनल. Second is corporate debtor name has been changed to debtor. Thirdly, moratorium has been changed to interim moratorium under section 96 and moratorium under section 101. Fourthly, information memorandum जो होता है, it has been changed to assets and liability. So why I'm sharing all this terminology with you is that whenever we practice or whenever we talk to our clients or plea our case in the court, we should use these terminologies against personal guarantor. Registration plan has been changed to asset repayment plan. Committee of creditors, हमारे मुंह पे हमेशा चढ़ा रहेगा, आगे भी अब इसका नाम चेंज कर दिया गया, मीटिंग ऑफ क्रेडिटर्स. Liquidator has been changed to bankruptcy trustee, and if I've been appointed as a liquidator for in case of CRIP, then in this case it will be bankruptcy trustee. Discharge of all liability. This is a very new concept, and we shall I have prepared one slide on it also, which we shall understand later on. In case of CRIP, we have all the assets which we we can use for the purpose of CRIP. I mean to say, for the purpose of the resolution, the details of which is always given in the information memoranda. But in case of personal guarantors, as per section 79 subsection 2, certain assets can't be taken by the RP. What are those assets? Unencumbered tools, books, vehicles, and other equipments as well associated to the debtor or banker for his personal use or for the purpose of his employment, business, or vacation. Nothing to elucidate it. Second is unencumbered furniture, household equipment, provision as per necessity, satisfying the basic needs. Nothing to there. Unencumbered personal ornaments of such value as may be prescribed. In this case, in this here, I would like to highlight that in this case, limit has been prescribed of rupees 1 lakh only, and that too owned by owned by the debtor and his immediately family member. Immediately family member means his dependent children and his dependent parents. Yes, this is something new. Any encumbered life insurance policy or a pension plan taken in the name of a debtor or his immediate family member. Meaning thereby कि अगर किसी डेटर को लग गया कि मेरा हालात बुरे होने वाले हैं और उसने कोई ऐसी इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसी ले रखी है कि जिसमें उसको पेंशन मिलेगी या जिसके अंदर उसको जो उसकी फैमिली को कुछ मिलेगा, तो वो आप कॉर्पोरेट वो जो है इसका पार्ट नहीं बन सकते. Similarly, an unencumbered single jewelry unit owned by the debtor of such value as may be prescribed. इसके ऊपर पूरा एक चैप्टर है. Broadly इसको दो पार्ट्स में डिवाइड करा गया है. In case of the person staying in rural area, then limit of the house should be not exceed 25 lakh rupees. And in case of person staying in urban area, then it should be 50 lakh rupees. कर ले आगे कर दे. कैसे करूं?
स्टॉप शेयरिंग करो. स्टॉप शेयरिंग स्क्रीन.
बन लेते हैं. कैसे करूंगा? स्टॉप हियर.
स्टॉप शेयर. शेयर स्क्रीन करो सर. स्क्रीन शेयर करो सर.
स्क्रीन कैसे शेयर करूं?
करते हैं जो स्क्रीन.
Now other similarly as if
स्क्रीन शेयर करने पड़ेगा ना.
कैसे करूं? कर तू कर. Similarly, there are certain debts which are excluded. These are the debts which are excluded are I'm sorry, there was a little bit of interruption in my presentation. And these are the assets which can't be taken by the under section 79 subsection 4. Now I come to certain debts which are specified under section 79 subsection 15. These are called excluded debts. These debts, even if debtor gets order also, even these he has to pay even after his insolvency. These are the debts which has to pay even after discharge of liability. Liability to pay fine imposed by a court or tribunal. And what will be defined as fine imposed by court or tribunal? This is again an interpretation issue, but abhi main isko delivery karunga, because reason being that then I should be missing my other things. Liability to pay damages for negligence, nuisance, or breach of statutory, contractual, or other legal obligations. Liability to pay EB maintenance of any person under any law for the time being in force. Basically, yeah, कि अगर this particular person they have taken.
Screen is not visible. Manoj, your screen is not visible.
Not visible?
No.
Just hold on. Just hold on. Screen कैसे नहीं visible? I'm just sharing my screen. Please hold on. 3 कहाँ से आएगी? अब आ रही है? बरी जी अब आ रही है स्क्रीन?
Not yet,
जी
sir.
नहीं आ रही है, आप वैसे ही कंटिन्यू कर लीजिए, कोई बात नहीं, आ नहीं रही है अभी।
जस्ट होल्ड ऑन, मैं कर रहा हूँ। एक मिनट।
मीटिंग करके सर दोबारा ज्वाइन करो,
क्या?
मीटिंग लीव करके दोबारा ज्वाइन करो।
चलिए मैं विदाउट स्क्रीन इसको कर रहा हूँ कंटिन्यू। एंड as far as security debts are concerned, these are the maintenance to any person under any law for the time being in force. Liability in, I was sharing that maintenance, this has been taken from the Europe or from the USA, that whereby people, where they feel that they have to pay money to their spouses for maintenance, they generally go out and go for the insolvency so that they should not be liable to be paid for that. But this provision has been included there, meaning thereby that इस तरह का कोई भी डेट होगा, इंसॉल्वेंसी का डिस्चार्ज सर्टिफिकेट मिलने के बाद भी उस बंदे को ये पैसे पे करने पड़ेंगे। सिमिलरली दे हैव टेकन कि अगर किसी स्टूडेंट ने लोन लिया हुआ है, तो स्टूडेंट लोन लिया हुआ है, तो वो आपको you have to be there, he has to pay that thing, उसको इससे कोई छूट नहीं मिलेगी even after discharge certificate. Now I come to appointment of registered professional, section 97 read with regulation 4. देखिए इसके अंदर मैंने जैसे पहले बताया कि इसमें सेक्शन 94 में अपॉइंटमेंट या एप्लीकेशन तब जाएगी जब डेटर कहेगा, 95 में तब जाएगी जब गारंटर इसको कहेगा। तो इस केस में हमारे को ये ध्यान देना है कि जब एप्लीकेशन सेक्शन 94 और 95 इन दोनों में से किसी भी टाइम पे जाती है, जैसे कि प्रैक्टिकली आज की डेट में एसबीआई का नाम ले रहे थे, तो एसबीआई ने लॉट ऑफ, जैसे बॉम्बे एसबीआई ने स्पेशली आई हैव सीन एंड चेन्नई एसबीआई आल्सो, दे हैव टेकन आस्क फॉर लॉट ऑफ कोटेशंस फ्रॉम द आरपी फॉर पर्टिकुलर पर्सनल गारंटर केस अगेंस्ट अ पर्सनल गारंटर। तो इस केस में वो पर्सनल उन्होंने आपको हमारे को उन्होंने पैनल कर दिया, बट इसके अंदर वी हैव टू सी दैट एज प्रिस्क्राइब्ड इन द रेगुलेशन वी नीड टू साइट दैट एप्लीकेशन। जबकि हमारे क्रिप्ट के अंदर ये होता था कि हमारे को फॉर्म 2 सिर्फ देना होता था, एप्लीकेशन हैज टू बी फाइल्ड बाय द एप्लीकेंट व्हिच मे बी एप्लीकेंट 7, 9 और 10, बट इन दिस केस वी नीड टू साइन एन एप्लीकेशन। अगर हम लोग इसका रीजन क्या है, अगर हम इसको साइन नहीं करते तो इन दैट केस adjudicating authority will not consider our to be consider us for appointment. They will go, adjudicating authority will dispose of, जैसे क्रिप के अंदर है कि within 14 days, जो कि 14 days से many times 14 months तक हो जाता था, and Supreme Court has also held that this 14 days are simply directory in nature, not mandatory. तो in that case they will appoint somebody from the panel, और उसके लिए जब वो पैनल से अपॉइंट होगा, in that case फॉर्म ए प्रिस्क्राइब करा हुआ है, जो फॉर्म 2 है हमारे यहाँ क्रिप के अंदर, उसके अकॉर्डिंगली we need to file it. Now question comes out to be who can be appointed as an RP. तो इसके लिए रेगुलेशन 4 के अंदर मेंशन्ड है कि who can be appointed as an RP. A person, उसके लिए काफी सारी क्वालिफिकेशंस दी हैं, लेकिन मैंने 2-3 जो इंपॉर्टेंट है वही मैंने इसके लिए, कि इसके अंदर ये लिखा हो कि he should be independent of guarantor. No question arises, अगर किसी एंटिटी, जैसे हम लोग हमारे यहाँ पे एंटिटीज है, अगर किसी एंटिटीज का पार्टनर या उसका डायरेक्टर जो है अगर रेजोल्यूशन प्रोसेस कर रहा है, तो कैन एनी अदर पर्सन फ्रॉम एंटिटी बी अपॉइंटेड एज अदर पार्टनर और डायरेक्टर इन दैट एंटिटी, और दैट पर्टिकुलर एंटिटी कैन बी अपॉइंटेड फॉर कॉर्पोरेट गारंटर। तो इसका आंसर जो है ये अल्टीमेटली कोर्ट से डिसाइड करेगी, बट इन माय ओपिनियन it can be yes also, it can be no also. It can be yes, reason being that it has not been specifically excluded under regulation 4, but it can be no, because here in the regulation they have mentioned that the RP who should be appointed for this particular debtor, he should not be related to the corporate against whom CIP process is going on. So अगर courts ये held करती है कि it is a relation, then it will be no, otherwise it will be yes. Second question comes out to be under section 98, which says how we can replacement of resolution professional. Debtor or creditor can replace, both has been given the power to replace. In case of creditor, if they want to replace, they need to pass a resolution with as was earlier in the CRIP with 75% majority. But here they, with the experience they have learned, and now in this case they have come out with this thing that if any debtor replaces any RP, then he can't give RP of his choice. What is happening at present in the bank that CRIP में जैसे ही हमारी operational creditor की application होती है, financial creditor as a bank, हमारी policy है जी हम तो जो उसी का RPO का उसको change करेंगे. This can't be done in this case. Reason being that here it has been clearly mentioned that in that case, adjudicating authority shall appoint new RP out of their panel. Now I deal with section 102, which is related to the public notice. It's the same subsection 1 and subsection 2, subsection 3. But here one important point is there that in case of CRIP, we issue public notice by the IRP, because IRP उस समय होता है. In this case, public notice has to be issued by the adjudicating authority. This is absolutely mentioned in section 102. और जब मैंने भी ये बात पढ़ी तो मेरे को भी लगा कि ये मैं इस बात को चेक करूं, रीचेक करूं. और adjudicating authority जो NCLT notice issue करेगी for insolvency of this thing, but it was mentioned there. And उसमें ये भी लिखा गया subsection 2 में इसके contents क्या है. These are the usual content. सिर्फ इसके अंदर mainly आपको ये देना है, orders की डिटेल देनी है, RP का particulars देने हैं, और this is all. और subsection 3 है, वो ये कहता है subsection 102 का कि आपने इसको जैसे usually आप publish कहाँ करना है, इसको fix उसके ऑफिस में करना है और उसकी वेबसाइट पे करना है. Another important concept here is claim, creditors, and statement of affairs. Now, here, we have in CRIP form B, C, CA, D, E, 5 types of form for claims for different type of creditors. But here we have only one form, that is only form B. It has to be filed as per section 103 and regulation 7. It need to be verified by the RP, not it need to be verified. Here, in RCRP, it says that IRP, RP shall collate this thing, but not verify. Here in liquidation, it is there that we need to verify it. Here we need to verify the particular form and then only determine liability. Or regulation 8 ये कहता है कि any change in the list of creditors, it has to be intimated within 2 days to all the creditors and the adjudicating authority there. अब इस चीज को मैं थोड़ा सा एक्सप्लेन कर देता हूँ कि इसका मतलब यह है कि अगर हमारे पास कोई क्रेडिटर ने फॉर्म भेजा, लेट्स प्रिज्यूम दिस थिंग कि जैसे किसी ऑपरेशनल क्रेडिटर्स ने हमारे को फॉर्म भेजा. आई एम शेयरिंग दिस थिंग विद माय प्रैक्टिकल एक्सपीरियंस आल्सो. जब हम शुरू में IRP था तो हमने सिंपली ये देखा कि जो उसने ये लेजर अकाउंट हमारे को भेजा जिसके बेस पे अपनी लायबिलिटी मान रहा है, वो हमारी अगर डेटर की किताबों में रिफ्लेक्ट हो रही है तो वी एक्सेप्ट इट एंड ट्रीट हिम एज अ क्रेडिटर. बट in the that is called collation. Collation means that collecting of all the evidence and then determining his right against the corporate debtor. But in case of when the same situations come in the liquidation, when if the same creditor again files, now the system has been changed that he can contribute that thing. So we need to verify, and practically it happened कि मैं एक particular case के अंदर RP था, उसके बाद liquidator था. जब RP का मैंने काम करा 6 महीने के आसपास, तो मेरे को एम्प्लॉइज ने कहा सर इसके अंदर जो ये क्रेडिटर ने क्लेम अपना लॉन्च करा ना, इसके अंदर सारी फर्जी एंट्रीज हैं कि बहुत सारी जगह पे उसने कोई माल वाल सप्लाई नहीं करा, बट सिंपली एकोमोडेशन एंट्रीज थी, वो बिल दे दिया. तो इन दैट केस व्हाट हैपेंड, मैंने उनका फिर स्टॉक रजिस्टर चेक करा, मैंने उनका PO चेक करा, तो उसने जो चीजें स्टॉक रजिस्टर के अंदर नहीं आ रही थी उनको मैंने डिलीट करा. उसने जो इंटरेस्ट क्लेम करा हुआ था PO में क्लेम नहीं था, ना इनवॉइस के अंदर लिखा हुआ था कि हम 18% इंटरेस्ट क्लेम करेंगे, तो दैट आई आल्सो डिलीटेड. बेस्ड ऑन दैट, this process is called verification. Similarly can happen with the financial creditor also, but we are not here to learn that thing. Let's move there. Another important aspect is there, RP has to prepare a report based on these claims. RP has to prepare a list of creditors as per section 104 and section 7, subsection 9 and subsection 9. And another part is there, RP has to prepare statement of affairs under section 107, subsection 3, subsection B, read with regulation 10. What is that statement of affairs? This is very important. Since I'm not able to share my slide with you, it is part of my slide. The statement of affairs, which has to be filed under section 105, read with regulation 10. What are the ingredients of this statement of affairs? It is, it's like information memorandum. अगर हम इसको CRIP के understanding angle से सोचें, it's like an information memorandum. But in case of bank guarantor, in case of debtor, what is there? Assets and liabilities for the preceding 3 financial years, details of excluded asset and excluded debts, income statement for the preceding 3 financial years and the current financial year, income tax return filed by the grantor, if any, for the preceding 3 years, details of debt out to grantor to his associate for the preceding 3 financial years. Guarantees given in relation to any of his debt, whether any of the guarantees are with the associate or other. Details of all the financial statements for the business owned by the grantor or of the firm in which he is a partner, as the case may be, for the preceding 3 financial years. इसके अंदर एक मेरे को बड़ी कंफ्लिक्टिंग चीज नजर आई, वो कंफ्लिक्टिंग चीज ये नजर आई कि स्टेटमेंट ऑफ अफेयर्स को डील करता है सेक्शन 105 और रेगुलेशन 10. Regulation 10 says that it shall be prepared by the RP, but section 105 says it shall be prepared by the debtor in consultation with the RP. इन दोनों के बीच में बहुत ज्यादा फर्क है. अब ये बट आई थिंक एज पर आवर प्रैक्टिस ये जो है क्या नाम इसका, it will the code will prepare over regulation, so it has to prepare by the debtor in consultation with the RP. ये सिमिलर सिचुएशन वही आ गई है कि जैसे ऑडिटर को बैलेंस शीट अलग से बना के ऑडिट करनी होती है, लेकिन प्रैक्टिकली ये वही होता है कि वही बैलेंस शीट बनाता है और वही उसको ऑडिट करता है. Another important aspect is repayment plan. It is, you know, if we try to correlate it with the CRIP, then it is basically resolution plan. Repayment plan has to be submitted with report of RP under section 106 within 21 days from the last date of submission of claims. Chapter 5, regulation 17 to 22 deals with it as follows. Section 17 deals with the content of repayment plan. Repayment plan is very important. इसके अंदर आपको ये लिखना पड़ेगा terms of repayment क्या है, आपके पास पैसा कहां से आएगा, अगर इन केस ऑफ यू नीड फाइनेंसिंग तो फाइनेंसिंग कहां से डेटर करेगा. रेगुलेशन 18 जो है वो डील करता है, रेगुलेशन 18 डील्स विद नॉन परचेज ऑफ एसेट बाय सर्टेन पर्संस, कि कौन सा बंदा ये जैसे सेक्शन 29 यहाँ पे हमारे है, उस तरह से रेगुलेशन 18 डील करता है कौन से बंदे इनके एसेट परचेज नहीं कर सकते. दीज आर बेसिकली रिलेटेड पर्सन ओनली. रेगुलेशन 19 डील्स विद द फाइलिंग ऑफ रीपेमेंट प्लान विद द एडजुडिकेटिंग अथॉरिटी विद इन 180 डेज फ्रॉम द रजिस्ट्रेशन प्रोसेस कमेंसमेंट डेट. ये इट्स सिमिलर. रेगुलेशन 20 जो है वो डील करता है कि अगर कोई रीपेमेंट प्लान के अंदर डेटर अगर उसके अंदर ब्रीच करता है, देन व्हाट रेमेडीज आर अवेलेबल विद द रजिस्टर्ड प्रोफेशनल. Now I come to regulation 20 deals with a breach of resolution repayment plan by the grantor. Then RP shall within 3 days issue notice to grantor, and grantor shall address it within 15 days, and consequently RP shall report the failure to creditors within 7 days and apply to the adjudicating authority for direction if it is going to be affect resolution plan. Meaning thereby कि इस केस में अगर डेटर एक बारी क्या कहते हैं कुछ फेलियर करता है, he has to go for he is given an opportunity to explain the reason of his failure, and if RP is satisfied it's okay, otherwise he has to move to the adjudicating authority along with information to the creditors. अब one thing is very important, जैसे मैंने शुरू में कहा कि इसके अंदर discharge order is very important. Discharge order section 119 read with regulation 21 है. तो what is discharge order? Discharge order is that RP shall apply to the adjudicating authority. It's basically जैसे liquidation के बाद या resolution plan accept होने के बाद जो adjudicating authority करती है, it's like that. RP shall apply to adjudicating authority, and adjudicating authority may pass an order. RP can apply for early discharge order also. यानी जो मैंने पहले initially आपको बताया 180 days का period है. अगर लगे कि उसके पास कोई assets नहीं है, कोई liabilities नहीं है, and he is able to take care of everything, then he can apply for discharge to the adjudicating authority earlier also. यस, इसके अंदर एक बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट है कि सपोज कर लो कोई ये लेने देने की कोई बात हो गई और कोई पर्टिकुलर केस चल रहा था डेटर के केस में, और ड्यूरिंग दिस पीरियड डेटर उस केस को जीत जाता है, एज अ रिजल्ट ऑफ विच लायबिलिटी ऑफ द अदर पर्सन इंक्रीजेस. तो इट कांट बी टेकन एज अ प्ली कि इसका डिस्चार्ज ऑर्डर हो गया या कुछ हो गया तो देन हिज लायबिलिटी इज limited to earlier extent only. It will not discharge third person of his liability. Non-cooperation by grantor, RP shall apply to the adjudicating authority for directions.
Manoj ji, sir, we have 5-10 minutes left only.
Yeah, I'm aware of it. That way you might be seeing that बहुत तेज चल रहा हूँ.
मनोज जी क्वेश्चंस ले लेते हैं, इसके बाद आप कर लीजिएगा.
चलिए ठीक है. We can do now. We have to start with the bankruptcy that we can take later on.
Yes.
Okay.
So, thank you so much, Manoj ji, for your insightful discussion. I think we have some queries from the participants. Let me take them one by one. We have one query from Vinita ji. Dear sir, please write whether both the proceedings, CIRP and insolvency, of personal guarantor can be carried out simultaneously, or insolvency of personal guarantor can be carried out before the CIRP. Also, what should be the fees for such assignment? Is it same as the CIRP? Madan sir, will you please like to take this query? Madan sir? Sir, you're on mute, please. Sir, please.
The proceedings with relation to PG to CG can be initiated only when the CD is before NCLT under IBC and an application under 7, 9 or 10 has been admitted. Otherwise, the PG to CD provisions of IBC are not applicable. Coming to fees. Yes. Somebody wants to speak something? Coming to
Yes,
fees.
I can share it with you. ये इसके अंदर शेड्यूल 2 में दिया गया है फीस का क्या फॉर्मेट होगा. ये बेसिकली इट्स लाइक लिक्विडेशन ओनली. जो आप रियलाइज करोगे, रियलाइजेशन पे कुछ फीस है और कुछ फीस आपको जब आप पैसे दोगे क्रेडिटर को, उसके बेस पे है. ये एक चार्ट बना हुआ है.
सर, इसमें मेरा क्वेश्चन है, क्या हम फिक्स्ड फी प्रपोज कर सकते हैं बैंक को?
But I tell you, in a recent case, my practical experience is, because I am an advisor to one of the resolution professional in that case, an application has been filed, RP has been appointed from the panel.
Okay.
RP has been appointed from the panel. Now RP has to submit his report within 10 days. Within 10 days, he has to do so many things which a normal human being cannot do even 30 days. Now, if he tries to do that, he files his report in 10 days. One of the parties files a complaint against him that I have not been provided principles of natural justice have not been followed. I have not been provided an opportunity of being heard, though his pleadings are there. Now, bench directs him, you provide equal opportunities to both. You hear the objections. You ask the other party to file the rejoinder, then you give them personal hearing to both the parties, and now you file a supplementary report. Now, once a supplementary report is filed, further objections are raised. Now, a particular item or particular matter which was to be closed within 15-20 days is been dragging there for last more than 3 months now. Now, can a resolution professional, what sort of fee he should charge? To begin with, he will quote the amount on the basis of the 15-20 days only. Now, if on that 15-20 days where he has to devote his 3 months time, who is going to make payment to him? Now, if he is making a request before the bench for that, please give some direction. Now, another interesting thing, that particular item has also before High Court, and High Court has granted the stay. Now, he has filed an application before the bench. Please give me directions whether this particular insolvency is on or not, whether this assignment is there with me or not, and if I have to be paid something, what shall I be paid and who will make payment to me?
Right.
All these things are in nascent stage. Let's wait for the Supreme Court verdict. Only after that, let's wait for another 6 months or 1 year. Then only the issues relating to fee will be settled.
Okay, sir.
One thing I would like to say, Madan sir, subject to what you say on that. If the case is not filed before the NCLT against the CD, and if one wants to proceed only against the personal guarantor and want to get him into the insolvency, then he can file application in the DRT.
DRT under the other laws.
No, under this law only, IBC, because now Part 3 has been notified, no sir?
Part 3, only PG to CG provisions have been notified. The other provisions have not been notified.
That's right. So as soon as he is a personal guarantor.
For PG to CD, adjudicating authority is NCLT only. For other individuals, adjudicating authority is DRT, and those provisions have not been notified so far.
No, I have a slightly different view on this. According to me, it has to go to DRT.
This is a legal position. You may have a different opinion.
Sir, the next query we have is from Najib ji. If the CD is an LLP, is the procedure same or winding up under LLP, winding up rules stand as no notification on 254 omission of IBC has taken effect. LLP winding up stands or CIRP stands for LLPs.
Can you
Puneet
repeat?
ji?
Can you repeat the
Or-
query?
Sir, I think he wants to ask whether for an LLP, for the winding up procedure under the CIRP stands or under the LLP laws, which to my mind is obviously under LLP law, not the CIRP process.
Correct.
So, Najib ji, if your query is different, please, if you can reword the same. Meanwhile, Akhil Chadda ji is asking Puneet ji, in his last issue discussed whether the corporate guarantee recover money from CD if there is no resolution plan and the company goes into liquidation. What will be the recourse for the corporate guarantor to recover money paid from the CD?
Akhilji, if you see the Contract Act, it says that as soon as the money is paid, Section 140 of the Contract Act says as soon as the money is paid by the surety to the creditor, he steps into the shoes of the creditor. So then in the liquidation process, his amount paid by him to the creditor would be construed to be sum payable to the surety, and that he will get as per the provisions of liquidation, whatever is the waterfall mechanism, he will get that if there is anything in the company.
Thank you, sir. We have another query from Dr. Yes, Madan, sir, please.
Reading this question from Q&A session, that if a CD goes into liquidation, how will the personal guarantor recover his money from the CD which he has paid in the liquidation proceedings or in IRP?
Puneet ji,
Are you reading this question only?
Yes, sir.
If the CD goes into liquidation, how will the personal guarantor recover his money from the CD which he has paid in the liquidation proceeding or in the CIRP? Where is the question of recovering the money from the CD?
No, CD.
पर्सनल गारंटर ने पे करे हैं पैसे,
सर गारंटर ने
रिकवर
पे
कैसे
करे
करें?
तो सीडी के बिहाफ पे तो करे.
गारंटर ने पे
हाँ जी.
करे तो करें for what?
CD on
Again,
behalf of the debtor, on behalf of the debtor, the CD has paid to the creditor. So creditor's claim is satisfied.
Right.
But now the guarantor has paid on behalf of the person of the corporate debtor.
He becomes a creditor, he will file his claim.
Yes.
Yes, liquidation में इसको जो priority है उसके साथ मिल जाएंगे पैसे.
Yes, absolutely.
We
Yes,
have one
Madan
more
ji,
query, sir,
with
from Dr.
this
S.P.
question,
Sharma.
Abhishek ji,
Ji, sir.
along with this question, very well said regarding this filing a claim suit by the corporate personal guarantor in the name of corporate debtor. Puneet ji, one thing you was referring, Indian Contract Act being so much clear that the liability of the guarantor is co-extensive with the principal debtor. Why this issue arose in case of IBC, and I think particularly in the case of SR Steel case and ArcelorMittal case, all that, you know, is it not the beyond doubt as per the provisions of the Indian Contract Act, when it is the co-extensive liability, if you know, interest is also there, that interest can also be recovered from the personal guarantor. In the same manner, if there is a resolution process going on and if the process is adopted, why this issue crop up in the IBC and we are waiting for the Supreme Court judgment? Can you little bit again highlight on the issue?
Actually, Rohitji, the issue is that there are two types of situations there can be where a guarantor is made to pay to on behalf of the debtor. So two types of situations can be there. One, there can be a resolution plan. So let us take an example. SBI owes 100, the company owes 100 rupees to SBI. And that 100 rupees is fully guaranteed by, let us say, the director of this company, Mr. A. So ABC Limited is the company, Mr. A is the guarantor. Now, option one would be if they are going to IBC, then CD can either there can be a resolution plan. Let's assume in the resolution plan, rather than 100 rupees, 70 is ultimately considered to be payable to SBI.
Correct,
So 30 is the haircut that he takes.
Yes.
Out of that 70, 40 rupees is paid by the corporate debtor and 30 is paid by the personal guarantor.
Fine.
So now the question comes, can the SBI still sue the guarantor for the balance 30.
That's what
And
I'm
this is-
saying, Puneet. This is
हाँ,
what
और
I'm
उसमें
saying.
उसमें रोहित जी उसमें the argument that was taken before the Calcutta High Court was that in the process of liquidation, after all, this is all a process of insolvency. So an application was filed in the insolvency proceeding. The debt of 100 has been reduced to 70. The Calcutta High Court followed the decision of Supreme Court, which related to liquidation, and held that whatever was the claim prior to liquidation remains the real claim of the creditor. And the reduction is not considered to be a reduction of liability. It is only that he cannot claim more than that. So they said that still the guarantor would continue to be liable for the balance 30.
That's what
That is
I'm
the dispute.
in
And
this such a big case, these issue arises, and when it is very much clear as per the Indian Contract Act, the co-extensive of the liability doesn't mean that additional liability is there on the part of the personal guarantor. If any resolution plan has been approved or haircut has
Yes.
been given, it
Yes.
coexistence with the personal guarantor also, and we are waiting for the Supreme Court judgment. Personally, with a little bit of knowledge, how can the haircut be recovered from the personal guarantor? Otherwise, the whole IBC process is futile.
That's right. Section 31 loses its
And
significance.
sir, Puneetji, I would like to take your example further. And Madanji, you also please give your thoughts on this. For example, in this case, ABC Limited, the debt was 100 rupees, and assuming the original promoters etc. are not eligible to file the resolution plan. Now this ABC Limited's resolution plan is filed by some other corporate person, XYZ Limited, and settled for rupees 50. Now, as per the provisions of the Contract Act, if the guarantor or the principal debtor changes the terms of this guarantee without informing the other person, so that also amounts to breach. So can the personal guarantor take an argument saying that the bank went ahead and changed the terms of my guarantee with someone else? You settled rupees 50 with someone else without even informing me, and now for the balance 50 you are coming to me. So can this argument be taken by the personal guarantor?
Absolutely.
Very good question. Very good question. And I think I am with Abhishek. If the terms of the guarantee has been accepted by the corporate debt creditor, then
Right.
the personal guarantee is now vacated.
Completely void.
Yes, Puneetji.
Let's not give a blanket verdict that it gets vacated or not.
Yes.
One has to go to the language of how this guarantee document has been worded, what is there in the resolution plan, how the terms have been changed, or what constitutes a change of terms. But yes, can it be challenged? My answer is yes, it can be challenged.
रोहित जी इसमें
हाँ मनोज जी आप बोलिए पहले.
ये कंट्रा है थोड़ी सी. देखिए ये जो प्रोसेस है ना आईबीसी का, ये एक स्पेशलाइज्ड लॉ है. ये हमारा कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट वाज अ जनरल लॉ एंड दैट टू इन 1872. आज की डेट पे जब कोई बंदा किसी को लोन देता है, जैसे बैंक आज की डेट में अनसिक्योर्ड लोन देते हैं, तो सिंपली ये कह देते हैं कि भैया तेरे पास कोई भी एसेट नहीं है लेकिन तू अच्छी सी कोई गारंटी दे दे, आई एम गिविंग यू ऑन दैट बेसिस. तो दैट इज व्हाई कोएक्जिस्टेंस ऑफ लायबिलिटी जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट में थी वो यहाँ पे नहीं ली गई. यहाँ पे ये कहा गया है कि सीडी की भी है और उसकी भी है. बट ultimately it will be the language of the law, interpretation of the courts will decide कि whether this liability coexists or not. That is why ABC के अंदर इसको कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट को कंट्रा करते हुए ये पर्सनल गारंटर्स की लायबिलिटी कोएग्जिस्ट करी गई थी along with corporate debt.
मनोज जी, ओनली लास्ट विद दिस मनोज जी के ऊपर जो आपने बात कही है, मेरा बिल्कुल इससे डिफरेंट थोड़ा सा व्यू है. जो
हाँ जी.
इंसॉल्वेंसी एंड बैंकरप्सी कोड है, ये प्रिंसिपल लॉ नहीं है रिकवरी का. ये एक कोड है जो एक मैकेनिज्म देता है रिकवरी का. उसके साथ साथ इंडियन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट प्रिंसिपल लॉ है. जो सारे बैंक के कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स हैं वो इंडियन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट के अंडर में आते हैं. सारे डेब्ट्स जो है वो इंडियन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट में आते हैं. तो यदि इंडियन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट प्रिंसिपल लॉ है जिसमें एग्रीमेंट फॉल करता है, तो आईबीसी उसके लॉ के अगेंस्ट नहीं है. हाँ, एक बात जरूर है कि नॉट स्टैंडिंग एनीथिंग अदर लॉ, वो प्रोसीजरली जरूर उसका एज है. लेकिन यदि इंडियन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट क्लियर है कि को एग्जिस्टेंस का क्या मतलब है, और इवन अभी जो एक बात आई ना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट, कि मान लो 70 में भी सेटलमेंट हुआ और उसमें से कुछ पार्ट पर्सनल गारंटर से रिकवर हुआ है, तो पर्सनल गारंटर इंडियन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट में स्यू कर सकता है उसको, प्रिंसिपल क्रेडिटर को।
प्रिंसिपल डेटर।
तो ये
हाँ जी,
आईबीसी में
हाँ
कहाँ
जी।
लिखा है? तो आईबीसी अपनी जगह है, इंडियन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट आज भी उसकी वैलिडिटी अपनी जगह है. दिस इज विद जनरल नॉलेज ऑफ द लॉ व्हिच आई एम सेइंग ओनली विद द.
मैं इसके ऊपर एक बात जरूर बोलूंगा कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ये स्पेसिफिकली एड्रेस किया है इशू. धारा नंबर 22 में उन्होंने बोला है कि सेक्शन 31 के कारण जो वो प्रोविजन है, अगर सेक्शन 31 में ना लिखा होता कि ये कॉर्पोरेट इंसॉल्वेंसी का जो प्लान है, जो रेजोल्यूशन का जो प्लान है, दैट विल बी बाइंडिंग ऑन द गारंटर ऑल्सो, तो गारंटर ये प्ली ले सकता था कि क्योंकि कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट में लिखा हुआ है कि जैसे ही कोई भी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट की टर्म्स वेरी होंगी तो आई विल बी एब्सॉल्व फ्रॉम माय लायबिलिटी. इसीलिए द सुप्रीम कोर्ट से सेक्शन 31 has specifically made him liable so that he cannot run away from his liability. So therefore the general law is that if there is any variation in the contract between the creditor and the debtor without concurrence of guarantor, then guarantor is absolved. But section 31 makes the position completely different and says that whatever is the decision taken by COC qua the debt of the whole of the CD, that is binding on everyone. It is binding on the creditor, on the debtor, on the guarantor, and on the government. So therefore, it is a overriding provision to that effect. And therefore, the guarantor cannot get absolved, Abhishek ji. Otherwise, he would have probably got absolved.
Yes, yes.
Specifically, para 22 mein bola.
I think, Puneet ji, you are referring to Ramakrishna case.
Ramakrishna case, yes, sir.
But you know, there is one more pertinent issue. I am a personal guarantor. I am not entitled, I am not eligible to give any resolution plan. I do not have any say in COC. COC is empowered, COC is entitled to sell the asset, to sell the company to anybody at any price. And then you come to me for the deficit amount. Why should I pay the deficit amount?
सर उसका आंसर मेरे हिसाब से तो बड़ा
had you discussed me, I could have got to 50% more amount than this, but I didn't have any say. You should have allowed me at that point of time. You didn't allow me at that point of time. So that is the reason, you know, in November 2019, when these provisions were notified, even IBWay also or MCA would not have thought that the virus of these provisions can be challenged. But once it has been challenged, and High Court in its wisdom actually granted the stay. हाई कोर्ट ने ऐसे स्टे नहीं दे दिया, बहुत काफी सुनने के बाद स्टे दिया है उन्हें. हाई कोर्ट has found the merit in this, and that is why Supreme Court has transferred all the cases. Let these cases come to us. We are going to decide it. Small issue, it's a major issue. Let's decide it.
So definitely, आप जो कह रहे हैं वो that is one part of it, but the answer to it otherwise lies in the point that Mr. Kuchal made when we were studying. He said that is the reason why you should never give guarantees. You may give loans.
That
because
is
your liability even exceeds the person who is lending.
Should we give guarantee or not? उस समय तो सबको पैसा चाहिए होता है.
पैसा चाहिए होता है.
खाली डॉक्यूमेंट होता है. खाली पेपर के नीचे दिखाया जाता है कहाँ क्रॉस लगा, साइन कहाँ पे करना है.
Yes,
बिल्कुल.
नहीं, लोन लेना चाहिए विद सम गारंटर.
ठीक है.
I think, sir, I think we can move to the next query by Dr. S.P. Sharma. His query is if the ex-promoters get the property under liquidation through NCLT under section 29A, whether proceedings against personal guarantor can be initiated under IBC, especially when the promoters get the property under a scheme, the amount to be paid in 4-5 years. So I think the question is, if I can rephrase it, that if some promoter who is eligible
you
under
can take an
29A,
example. Abhishek ji, you can take an example if possible.
Yeah, so for example, ABC Limited went into liquidation. There was no resolution plan found out. It went into liquidation. Maybe it was an MSME. So promoters not been disqualified under 29A finally bought the company as a going concern during the liquidation for say rupees 50 and the actual debt was 100. So his question is whether still proceedings against the promoters as personal guarantors for balance rupees 50 can be made or not.
अभिषेक, इसका क्वेश्चन इतना आसान नहीं हो सकता जितनी आसान ये क्वेरी लग रही है. Because here the promoters have not got the company as a going concern. The promoters have purchased the properties. If you read the question, They have not purchased the company, they have purchased the assets of the company. They are buyers of
Yes.
they are buyers of the assets. So if they
Hmm.
have purchased the assets, so whether any balance amount can be recovered from them under the provisions of the code as personal guarantors or not, my primary answer on the primary reading of this question is yes, it can be recovered.
Yes, yes. According to me also, the law is very, very clear. The Supreme Court says that the liquidation of the principal debtor do not absolve the liability of the guarantor. And there is a long list of cases on this. The leading case being Maharashtra State Electricity Board versus official liquidator. And I only quote one line. But a discharge which the principal debtor may secure by operation of law in bankruptcy or in liquidation proceedings does not absolve the surety of his liability.
But here I will extend my answer unless otherwise worded there. So if in this case of purchase of assets, if it is written there, if it is an agreement between the two, between the seller and the buyer, that the personal guarantee shall extinguish, then it will get extinguished.
Sir, Madan sir, I have one query. I have seen in few resolution plans, there is a condition that the personal guarantee or corporate guarantee given by the promoters shall stand extinguished. And I have seen 2-3 contradictory decisions of various benches of NCLT in this regard. What is your view on this? Whether by filing a resolution plan by some third party, can the guarantee of the original promoter be extinguished?
First of all, if such a clause is there in the resolution plan, the third party is writing that the personal guarantee of the promoter share will get extinguished.
Extinguished or assigned to him, or assigned to him.
First of all, if it get extinguished, it means it is not a plan by the third party. It means the face of it is a plan by the promoters only.
Hmm.
If they say it will get transferred to them, certainly it will get transferred to them. But it is up to COC if they, whatever they accept, and then whatever plan is accepted, approved by NCLT, that becomes final, that is binding on everybody. But normally what I've seen in almost all the plans, COC before approving the plan specifically looks into this aspect. What is is there any clause regarding personal guarantors?
Personal guarantee.
And they always say, please remove this clause, otherwise we are not going to accept this particular resolution plan.
Right. Sir, we have one more query. I think Najib ji has reworded his query. Sir, to my understanding, creditor wind up under LLP Act is omitted by Schedule 10 of IBC. So my query was, CIRP proceeding or winding up under the LLP Act and LLP winding up rules, how the personal guarantors of LLP SCD is effective? Is the process the same as companies?
I will refrain from giving any answer right now unless I understand the query. You may park this query. We can give the reply later on through email. You may request,
Okay, sir.
request Mr. Najib to give his email ID. We may give the answer through email.
Yes, and I request all the panelists, Puneet ji and Manoj ji, to share their PPTs because I think participants are requesting for it. Apart from that, we don't have any other queries in the chat box. But if anyone would like to ask a query, I think we can open up and they can ask their queries.
I think Dr. S.P. Sharma has extended his query now. That in case of MSME units, promoters are eligible even if the company is taken as going concern, then what is the case?
Yes.
My answer will remain the same.
So then only one addition would be there. Then the guarantor can recover the money from the company because the company would still remain in existence.
No, here now the question is of that they are buying the company. Earlier they were buying the property, now they are buying the company as a going concern. Whether they recover it from the company or not, it's their own company.
No, sir, but the guarantor can recover, na? There can be a third party guarantor also.
I think in this case, the promoters are debtors only.
If promoters are, then all right, they will see whether it suits them to recover or not.
Yeah, so that they after paying or discharging the liabilities towards the bankers, now they may be there as a creditors in the books of the company.
I think Abhishek ji, we can wind up now. The questions are over.
So I think there is one in the Q&A also. I think this query is taken up.
Is the CIRP process for corporate guarantor is the same as that of corporate debtor? Corporate guarantors are also, they step into the shoes of corporate debtor in that sense, because they are also liable. So if there is a default, he doesn't pay, then yes, the same method goes for them also.
Yes.
So with this, I would like to thank all the participants for taking out time and attending our webinar today. I will request Rohit ji to please share a few words.
Thank you, Abhishek ji. I think you all are panelists today, and you have given excellent inputs so far as the IBC law is concerned, and very good discussion which is there. Although we are waiting for the final verdict from the Honorable Supreme Court, but I think the pulses have been captured here in this deliberation, and we have the precedents also. We have discussed the general law, civil law also, and their implication with the IBC special law also, and how the IBC is going to take shape in the near future is also very important. All of you are doing wonderful job for discussion in this IBC group, and I would request all the participants also to be active with the BVSS IBC group. We are having regular webinars, seminars, and also we have our WhatsApp group also. Do share your technical and legal inputs on the issue for the benefit of the members. And I thank you for all of you for joining, and thanks to the panelists who has given their time. Puneet Agrawal ji, our advisor, GP Madan ji, Manoj Anand ji, and Abhishek Garg ji, all are working in depth to for the benefit of the members also, and for the benefit of I would rather say for the development of the law in the current scenario, so that this IBC could take the proper shape and correct shape, because this is going to be the futuristic law. Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you very much.
One
Thank
thing
you
I
so
would
much,
like
sir.
to say to all the participants that if you want us to do more seminars, webinars on any particular issues pertaining to IBC, I would request you to kindly get back to us with your topics and suggestions. And also we come out with a magazine, BVSS with the Patrika. Do contribute your articles, write-ups, case law analysis, or any other thing which you find useful for the purpose of finance, accounting, and tax professionals. So do keep in touch with us so that we can do more in the group. Thank you.
Yes, I would also second with Puneetji's request that you may send us the topics which you want us to discuss, or we can discuss it in future webinars. With this, I
Madanji
think
wanted to say something. Madanji wanted to say something.
No, nothing. Simply, I just want to say on this particular issue, that the law has not settled. Rather, it's just started and it's the nascent stage. Today's event was nothing but a brainstorming session. Just to apprise you, yes, such a law exists and the provisions stand notified. Now maybe in the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or 1 year, I don't know how much time the Supreme Court is going to take, because there are so many issues are pending before Supreme Court, particularly with respect to the home buyers, which were challenged sometimes in the month of January this year. It has been almost 10 months and now the notices have been issued. So going by that, I think it may take another 1 year that this law is settled down. Till that time, you have to actually guard yourself. According to me, I'll say again that action can be taken against the personal guarantors by the banks. This stay is not applicable. You may file a writ. High Court may give you some benefit. High Court may extend this particular stay. if you are lucky. Otherwise, the banks may take some action, and the pendency of the matter before Supreme Court may not come to your rescue at present. However, in the meantime, if you approach Supreme Court may decide, okay, now the stay will stand extended to all the matters. That's a separate issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you everyone for today's webinar. And with this, a very goodbye and wish you all a very happy Diwali.
Wish you all a very
Stay safe.
happy Diwali.
Very happy Diwali to all of you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.